The silent drug, why strangers' opinions control you more than you realize? Hello, Mind Explorers, and welcome to our Idea Lab. Today, we're doing something special. We're going to embark on a journey together, delving into 5 levels of understanding about a topic that affects all of us, every single day. We'll talk about that little jolt of pleasure when you see a like, that subtle anxiety before public speaking. We'll be talking about the addiction to strangers' approval. And trust me, this isn't a superficial journey. Diving deep into this topic isn't just about curiosity. It's an essential survival tool for navigating the modern world without losing control of your own life. I promise you this, by the end of this journey, the way you view every notification, every comment, and every glance from a stranger will have changed forever. Let's begin at level 1, the surface of the known. The most famous and visible aspect of this topic today is, of course, the relentless pursuit of likes and followers on social media. It seems pretty straightforward. Every like, every positive comment is a small dose of social validation. A signal that tells our brain, hey, people like you, you're safe. Another aspect we're all familiar with is how we adapt our behavior to fit in. You know, laughing at a joke we didn't quite get, or moderating our opinions in a new group to avoid making a bad first impression. And this permeates almost everything we do. The outfit we choose for a party, the places we visit just to snap a good photo, and even the way we order our coffee. Think about the last time you were on vacation. How many photos did you take searching for that perfect angle, that ideal light, not for the memory itself, but for the Instagram post? That's a universal example of this mechanism in action. And a third fact we're all familiar with is the fear of public speaking. Deep down, this fear is almost never about the act of speaking itself, but rather the fear of being negatively judged by the audience. It's the fear of mass disapproval. Now, all of this isn't some glitch in our system. It has a very deep evolutionary origin. For 99% of human history, we lived in small tribes. Imagine one of our ancestors. If the tribe approved of them, it meant access to food, protection, and a mate. If the tribe rejected them, solitude was literally a death sentence. Ostracism, being excluded from the group, meant facing predators and hunger all alone. So, as you can see, likes, the clothes we wear, and our public speaking anxiety are just the tip of a gigantic iceberg, shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. But if this is what we see on the surface, what secret forces are truly driving it from beneath? Welcome to level 2, the hidden mechanisms. The first secret driver is a chemical in your brain called dopamine. Every time you receive a signal of approval, your brain releases a small amount, making you feel good. It's the same reward system that lights up with delicious food or exercise. And here, my friends, is where the real magic, or the real trap, begins. Because our brain loves dopamine so much that it starts chasing more and more of what triggers it, creating a cycle, a kind of feedback loop. But this knowledge has a dual application. First, the opportunity. You can use this mechanism to your advantage. If you want to build a good habit like studying or working out, seek out a support group. The approval and encouragement from that group will provide those dopamine hits that reinforce positive behavior. A perfect example is a group of writers who commit to writing 1,000 words a day and celebrate each member's achievements. The group's applause, even if virtual, becomes the fuel to keep writing. Now, the other side, the risk. Understanding this mechanism allows you to detect when you're being manipulated. Digital platforms, for instance, often use what's known as intermittent variable rewards. They don't always give you approval, but they give you just enough to keep you coming back for more. Think of a dating app. It doesn't show you all the likes at once. It doles them out with notifications, urging you to open the app again and again, always chasing the next potential reward, the next hit of validation. Now, let's talk about a process governed by an invisible rule that sociologists know well. It's a fascinating idea that, in simple terms, we could call the looking glass self. The rule is this: much of our identity isn't based on who we think we are, but rather on how we believe others perceive us. We construct our self-concept by seeing our reflection in the eyes of others. We are an echo of external perceptions. A common example: if, from a young age, everyone tells you you're hilarious, it's highly likely you'll develop a sharp sense of humor and become the class clown. You internalize that image and make it your own. And within us, there's a structure, a kind of approval hierarchy. Not all approval is created equal. The opinion of a mentor or someone we admire can be worth 1,000 times more than that of a stranger. Yet, the mass disapproval from thousands of strangers can completely override the approval of our closest circle. This directly connects us to a cognitive bias, a programming error in our brain, commonly known as the spotlight effect. This factory default in our brain makes us believe that people are paying far more attention to us than they actually are. We feel as if a spotlight follows us everywhere, illuminating every single one of our flaws or mistakes. But here's a strategy to counteract it: the 1% mental model. When you feel that anxiety, consciously assume that others are only noticing 1% of what you think they're noticing. I assure you that's a much closer approximation to reality. So the next time you spill a little coffee on your shirt and feel like everyone in the office is judging you, remember this mental trap. Take a breath and realize that for others, that incident is just an irrelevant blip in a day full of their own concerns. This desire for approval isn't new, and an ancient Roman custom proves it. For them, gloria, public reputation and recognition, was as valuable a currency as gold. A general didn't just want to win a battle, he wanted the people of Rome to talk about his victory. The takeaway for us today is that while reputation is important, our fundamental worth shouldn't be measured in likes or public acclaim. The Romans also had a concept called dignitas, which referred to a person's intrinsic merit and character. Perhaps we should focus more on our digital dignitas? Based on everything we've seen at this level, we can extract a key real-life deduction. And the applicable rule of thumb is this: the source of approval matters more than the quantity. Approval from those who build and contribute is a driving force. From those who only criticize and destroy, it's an anchor. In practice, this means you must actively choose your audience. Seek the opinions of people you respect, who have built things, who share your values, and at the same time, learn to construct a mental filter for anonymous and irrelevant noise. Understanding these mechanisms gives us back our power. We stop being puppets of our impulses and become the ones pulling the strings, capable of deciding which voices to listen to and which to silence. But if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because here's where the story gets really messy. Welcome to Level 3, the chaos of reality, debates, and complexities. And the first major controversy is the clash between authenticity and social survival. On one side, you have the camp that says, be yourself, no filters, always. Your authenticity is paramount. On the other, you have the more pragmatic camp that responds, that's a dangerous fantasy. You need to adapt to social norms to survive and thrive. What's at stake in this debate is something fundamental. On one hand, absolute individual freedom. On the other, social cohesion and integration. And the truth is, we live in a constant tension between these two. And this brings me to challenge a popular belief you've surely heard 1,000 times, the idea that you shouldn't care what other people think. I'm going to be direct. This is quite possibly one of the worst pieces of advice you can give a human being. We are inherently social creatures. Caring about others' opinions is a basic survival mechanism. The goal isn't to not care, but to choose who you empower to matter to you. People love to believe in this myth because it offers a very seductive fantasy of invulnerability. It's a simple shield against the pain of rejection, but it's a shield that isolates you from genuine human connections, which are what truly nourish us. And here we encounter a wonderful and cruel paradox. The more desperately you seek the approval of others, the less you actually get it. People are drawn to genuine confidence, and that confidence is precisely what evaporates when your self-esteem hinges on external applause. This plunges us into a philosophical dilemma with no easy solution. Does a true self truly exist, completely independent of others' perceptions? Or are we, in essence, a continuous creation that emerges from the interaction between what we feel inside and what we receive from the outside world? Now let's take a slightly more critical viewpoint for a second. Let's consider the ethical objection. What's known as the attention economy consciously designs its platforms to exploit this fundamental human need. They use algorithms to maximize our interaction, preying on our need for approval. The uncomfortable question is, are these companies morally responsible for the epidemic of youth anxiety and depression we're currently witnessing? It's a deeply uncomfortable question. And this leads us to another controversy, the role of influencers, or as we might call them, digital opinion leaders. If we analyze this over time, we see a radical shift. Before, we sought approval from our immediate community, family, neighbors, then from distant figures in film or television. Now we seek approval from close people online who portray a perfect, edited life, creating a constant and unattainable standard of comparison that has never existed before in human history. Ultimately, all this struggle is connected to the deepest human condition. It's the eternal push and pull between two of our most basic impulses, the desire to be a unique and special individual and the fundamental need to belong to a group. And this presents us, as a species, with a fundamental problem we haven't yet solved. How do we design our digital societies to satisfy our need for connection without turning our self-esteem into a commodity, rated with stars and bought and sold with clicks? As you can see, this topic is far more complex than a simple social media is bad. It's a fascinating and at times terrifying labyrinth of psychology, technology, and ancestral needs. You've survived the chaos. Now it's time to look at the details that separate the merely curious from the true connoisseurs. You're at level 4 expert knowledge. And the first specialized concept I want to share with you is something called sociometer theory. This theory, proposed by psychologist Mark Leary, suggests that our self-esteem isn't a measure of our actual worth, but rather an internal gauge, a sociometer, that constantly monitors our degree of acceptance or rejection by others. The best analogy to understand it is this. Imagine your self-esteem isn't a treasure in a chest, but the needle on your car's fuel gauge. Positive social interactions fill the tank and the needle rises. Negative ones, like criticism or indifference, drain the tank and the needle drops, activating an internal alarm that tells you, warning, you're running low on social fuel. And to understand where these ideas originated, we need to talk about a key but often overlooked figure, sociologist Charles Horton Cooley. This man was a true unsung hero. In the early 20th century, long before the internet existed, it was he who developed that looking-glass self idea we discussed earlier. He was the first to systematically propose that our sense of self is a reflection of how others perceive us. A true pioneer of this entire conversation. Now, let me introduce you to an alternative, slightly rebellious theory, which is actually more of a practice. It's known as rejection therapy. The perspective here is completely different and unconventional. Instead of avoiding rejection, you actively seek it out, but in small, controlled doses. The idea is to ask for absurd things, like a discount at a coffee shop or to let you make an announcement over a supermarket's intercom. By voluntarily exposing yourself to a no, you desensitize your brain. You teach it that rejection isn't deadly. And this brings us to a counterintuitive but fascinating detail from scientific research. Neuroscience studies using brain scans have shown that the brain processes the pain of social rejection in the same areas that process physical pain. This clashes with our intuition because we tend to separate emotional pain from physical pain. But to your brain, there's no distinction. Neurologically speaking, a public humiliation can hurt in a very similar way to a burn. That's why rejection feels so incredibly awful. And this is where everything connects. Remember that evolutionary need for the tribe we discussed at the beginning? That need forged a brain that interprets social rejection as a physical danger. This danger is constantly monitored by our sociometer, which is our self-esteem. And modern technology has created a machine that can press that pleasure or pain button hundreds of times a day. And that, my friend, is the aha moment. This isn't a personal failing. It's not that you're weak. It's your ancestral biology clashing head-on with 21st century technology. Reaching this level of detail gives us a much more authentic and, crucially, a far more compassionate view of why we struggle so much with this topic. From here, we enter uncharted territory. Do you dare to look towards the final frontier? Welcome to Level 5, the final frontier, speculation, and awe. And the first futuristic idea I want to explore is the concept of digital dignity. Imagine that in 100 years, society evolves. Perhaps instead of chasing superficial approval from thousands of strangers, we'll use technology to cultivate deeper connections. Social networks with a strict limit of 150 friends, which is the famous Dunbar's number, the maximum number of stable relationships a human brain can truly manage. But here, science hits a wall. We can scan the brain and see which neurons light up with a like, but science cannot answer the fundamental question, why does the subjective experience of pride or shame feel that way? Why does consciousness even exist? And there, where science stops, philosophy takes over. It forces us to ask, what is the self, really? Is it a fixed entity that can be approved or disapproved of? Or is it a fluid process, a constant dance with the world? If our self is constructed with mirrors, what happens when all the mirrors are broken or distorted? And the philosophical implication of this is dizzying. If our social reality is constructed through collective agreement, perhaps our need for approval is just a small-scale echo of a much larger cosmic principle of interconnectedness and consensus. But bringing it back down to earth, how we manage this topic is directly connected to the future of humanity. Think about it for a second. Our addiction to short-term approval fuels cycles of outrage, misinformation, and polarization. Learning to validate ourselves from within, both individually and within our communities, could be the key psychological skill we need to overcome tribalism and collaborate to solve global problems. And here I offer you the ultimate idea, the most provocative assertion of this entire journey. Perhaps the final goal isn't to stop seeking approval, but to become the kind of person whose approval you yourself would seek. To be your own validator, to become the only person whose good opinion is indispensable to you. That is true personal sovereignty. And with that idea, our journey through the 5 levels has concluded. Take a deep breath and contemplate the incredible, comprehensive overview of the path we've traveled together. Remember how we started this journey? talking about something as simple and familiar as a like on a photograph, a small, almost insignificant notification on a screen. And look where we are now, understanding how that tiny click is inextricably linked to our brain's pain system, to our ancestors' survival strategy on the savannah, to the ethics of technological design, and perhaps even to the future of human cooperation. We've traveled from the most obvious surface to the most astonishing depths of knowledge. It has been a true transformation. And now I ask you, from this entire journey, what idea, what revelation has impacted you the most? What piece of the puzzle truly clicked for you? I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for dedicating your time and especially your curiosity to getting this far. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. The dialogue we create there among all of us is, to me, the most valuable part of this intellectual adventure. If this journey through the 5 levels of knowledge has provided you with value, consider subscribing so you don't miss our next deep dives, and share this video with someone you know has a mind as curious as yours. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and never ever stop looking for the hidden forces that move the world. Whose approval are you really seeking?